Well guys, I spotted this absolute annihilation of the stone cold loser Sadiq Khan earlier today with some terrible audio coming from the London Assembly or the BBC. I think someone in their Zoom call had an open mic with the worst background noise known to mankind. It was horrendous to listen to, so I cleaned up the audio to remove the background noise and make it watchable, because Brexit Alliance London Assembly member Peter Whittle went all out on the Unpatriotic Labour Party and the tosspot Mayor of London Sadiq Khan. Peter Whittle was calling him out for the ridiculous commission I covered a month or so back that plans to erase British history in favour of their warped fantasies. I mean, he literally salt-mined half the chamber until they started screaming for him to be kicked out, because when someone says something they don't like and they cannot argue against it, they obviously have to cancel them. In my opinion, he did very well, so take a look at the demolition for yourself.
London is one of the most diverse cities in the world. But many Londoners don't see themselves or their histories reflected in our public realm. The range of people immortalised in our statues, memorials and buildings do not capture who we are and what we represent. It's an uncomfortable truth, for example, that our nation and our city owe a large part of their wealth to the slave trade. The Black Lives Matter protest have rightly brought this to the public's attention. Under the terms of the GLA Act, I have the authority to establish advisory boards and commissions which promote economic and social development. As Mayor, I represent all Londoners, and I believe it's important that we bring people together and take the right steps to ensure we celebrate the achievements and diversity of everyone in our city. That's why I've established the Commission. As well as City Hall, boroughs across London and others are also addressing this important issue, and my team is working closely with other global cities including New York and Sydney. In London, we've established a partners board to provide advice to the Commission, which includes English Heritage, the Arts Council, Black Cultural Archives and Historic England. And we're working in partnership with borough leaders from across London who welcome the Commission. It's important to be clear about why this issue has captured the imagination of Londoners. Our capital's diversity is our greatest strength, yet our statues, road names and public spaces reflect a bygone era. This can't continue. I think we should celebrate the achievements and diversity of everyone in our city, and that we commemorate those who've made London what it is today. To do this, we must discuss the sometimes complicated legacy of our public realm, and this is what the Commission is all about.
Thank you for that answer, Mr. Mayor. When they drafted that act that you referred to, I don't think probably that they expected that they would have a mayor who saw it perfectly fine to take upon himself to judge London's heritage and past. And I would ask you, on a moral level, if not a legislative one, what right do you think you have to sit with this committee in judgment on London's heritage, which has, I would add, a British significance too, being the capital?
Well, let me try and just unpackage the number of issues you raised there. So I think you're wrong in your analysis of the intentions of parliamentarians who drafted the GLA Act. You'll be aware that previous mayors have, for example, with others, decided what takes place on the fourth plinth. You'll be aware, for example, that we now have a new statue in Parliament Square of Millicent Fawcett, which was, City Hall did a lot of work in getting to where it is today. You'll also be aware that previous mayors have made decisions around the public realm of Trafalgar Square and Parliament Square as well. So when you talk about the intention of the GLA Act, I'm really happy for us to both explore what the intentions were, but I think you're wrong there. In relation to me being the judge, I'm not. We've set up a commission, which have a number of key stakeholders from across our great city, who will be providing advice, which we hope to act upon.
Mr. Mayor, these people on your commission, they're all going to be basically mayor's mates, aren't they? They're all going to sing from the same hymn sheet, which is an ideological one. This was born, this idea, and you announced it at the very height of the BLM protest. So basically, the incentive behind this really is one of revising and removal. Millicent Fawcett in Parliament Square was a new statue. We're not really talking about that, are we? We're talking about going back through London's past. You mentioned, in when you've talked about this, you said that much of London comes from a bygone era. Well, that would be history, Mr. Mayor. You do accept that a bygone era is actually history. And I repeat, nobody, no mayor, no elected official, none of us, have the right to simply start removing and revising what has been there for centuries and centuries. And you say that I would take great issue when you say this has really captured the imaginations of Londoners. It's really demoralised them. Can you not see that?
Well, I can see you're demoralised, but I can speak on behalf of other Londoners who quite like the idea of us looking at public spaces. There could be street names, there could be works of art, there could be murals, there could be blue plaques, and there could be other issues as well. I'm not quite clear why you feel so threatened by
I don't feel threatened, Mr. Mayor. I don't feel threatened at all. I do not feel threatened. It's not a question of that. What I do feel very passionate about is somebody basically coming in and essentially saying, I am going to, or this commission is going to start, as you put it, deciding which legacies should be celebrated and which shouldn't be. No one has the right to do that. And I think it is extraordinary at a time when this city is facing almost extinction level event economically, largely as well down to many of the things you've done, such as congestion charge and all of that, that actually now you start attacking its heritage. And the councils that you refer to are Labour ones, 130 of them up and down the country. We all know, do we not, Mr. Mayor, that your party doesn't really like patriotism, doesn't really like Britain very much, wouldn't you say?
That's quite a slur, but coming from you, it's no surprise. We're a very patriotic party. I'm very proud of these
disgraceful, Chair. Will you reprimand that Assembly member? That's an absolute disgrace. He should be immediately reprimanded. That's an insult to the Mayor. It's an insult to Labour members of this Assembly.
No. Listen, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
At the very time when when this city is facing what it's facing, it is extraordinary that you are now concentrating on setting up something to revise its past history.
Well, Chair, that's a characterisation I don't accept.
Right, well, Mr. Mayor, all I can say is that the one consolation is that it's very unlikely that anyone's going to be putting up a statue to you.
Well, as you see, there's not much that I even need to add to that. Peter Whittle is spot on with every single point he makes. Khan has no right, and never will, to remove our history. Let's be honest, most of the capital hates him with a passion. He is by far the worst mayor we have ever seen, and the Labour Party is about as patriotic to the UK as the fucking IRA. Public opinion would tell you as much. The election last year solidified that for anyone with half a brain cell. My only criticism of Peter Whittle would be is that he should have used that, since it's an unarguable fact at this point. Naturally, the Labour members in there could not take some home truths, so tried to cancel him. It ultimately failed, and he refused to apologise, though he did actually withdraw the comments about the Labour Party. It is a bit of a shame really, since it's exactly what the public thinks, as I said, but he did well enough to expose the snivelling shitweasel this time around.
There is a pattern consistent throughout history of oppressed people turning on the oppressors, slaves against their owners, the peasantry against the feudal barons, colonies, Mr. Verhofstadt, against their empires, and that is why Britain is leaving. And it doesn't matter which language you use, we are going, and we are glad to be going. We're off.